There are several major travel changes coming into effect in 2025. This includes air travel, both domestically and international. And if you're flying to your cruise, these are things that you'll want to know. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now, maybe you are planning a Mediterranean cruise, or maybe you're going on a British Isles cruise, or maybe you're taking an Alaska cruise, or even a Caribbean cruise. With many of the travel regulations and requirements changing in early to mid 2025, there are some things that you need to know and plan for. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over 4 major new travel regulations and requirements. And as well, I'm going to go over 2 new airline policies. One that I think is actually pretty bad for some people, and another one that I think is pretty good. Now, before I get started, I did want to mention 2 things. Firstly, I am a cruise YouTube channel, so I rarely talk about air, but the reality is most of the time people are going to be flying to their cruise, and these are questions that have come up a lot within the community. So if you have any additional questions or information to share, please leave that down in the comments below. And secondly, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give this video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let's get started. Okay, so first let's talk about international travel and some of the new travel requirements that are likely to come into effect in early 2025 to mid 2025. Now, this affects people that typically wouldn't need a visa to go to these countries, and a passport would be enough. For instance, people from the United States or from Canada. So if you are traveling to the UK, or if you're traveling to anywhere in the European Union, so as an example, if you're going on a Mediterranean cruise and it leaves from Greece, or it leaves from Italy, or it leaves from Spain, then you would need the ETIAS or the ETIAS. And that stands for European Travel Information and Authorization System, which is basically a new travel authorization system that is required for visa-exempt travelers entering the European Union. And this is supposed to start in spring 2025. Now, it has been delayed already in 2024, so you never know, but it does seem like it is going to take effect at least sometime within 2025. Now, it looks like it's not going to be very complicated, so don't worry, but you are going to have to do this a little bit in advance. So the application is online. They say that for approval, it's going to take approximately 96 hours, so definitely not very long, and it's going to be good for 3 years. And by the way, the cost of it is going to be €7. So definitely not something that's very expensive. And if you are over 70 or if you're under 18, then there is no cost for it. However, be forewarned, it doesn't mean you don't need to get it if you're under 18 or over 70. It simply means that there is no cost. Now, if you're flying into the UK because, for instance, you're going on a British Isles cruise, or maybe you're going on a Mediterranean cruise and it's leaving from the UK, so you need to fly there, then you're going to have UK's ETA. Now, by the time you watch this video, it may already be in effect, because for US and Canadian travelers, this does come into effect starting on January 8th, 2025. Now, it really looks like this is pretty easy. You can find the information on the website. And by the way, I will leave some resources for you linked down below in the description of this video, just in case that can be helpful. Now, for the UK's ETA, you're going to be able to apply online, or you can also apply by downloading the app. The cost is €10, and it is good for a duration of 2 years. According to the website, you should usually get a decision within 3 days, but it is possible that it may occasionally take a little bit longer. So I do suggest that you do this in advance. And by the way, within that 2-year time span, you can travel as many times as you want. The EES. Now, this is actually much more simple than it sounds. And again, it's when you're traveling internationally, and it stands for the Entry-Exit System. Now, the EU is launching its separate digital monitoring initiative, the EES, and it uses face and fingerprint scans instead of passports to identify non-Europeans. Now, this is very similar to systems that have already been in place in Canada and the United States, and there really is nothing that you'll have to do. Now, it's supposed to come into effect sometime in 2025, but it has already been delayed from November 2024. All right, let's move on to domestic flights, and in particular in the United States. And by the way, soon I am going to be talking about those airline policies. Real ID. Now, Real ID compliance is supposed to go into effect on May 7th, 2025 for US travelers. Now, anyone 18 or older is going to need a Real ID to travel domestically by air. Now, Real ID could be a compliant driver's license, state-issued ID card, or other acceptable form of identification to pass through airport security checkpoints when traveling domestically by air. Now, you'll notice, especially if you have a state-issued ID, that Real ID compliant cards are generally marked with a star, either a black or a gold star, in the upper portion of the card. Now, accepted forms of Real ID include the US passport as well as a US passport card, DHS trusted traveler cards like Global Entry, Nexus, and Sentry, and state-issued enhanced driver's licenses in select states. So by the way, I know I just mentioned that, but if you are using a passport for your cruise and for your travel already, this is going to be just fine. And later on at the end of the video, perhaps I'll talk briefly about if you need a passport to cruise and why it could be a good idea. Now, while we're talking about flying and air travel, let's talk about something good and something not so good. In particular, the carry-on rules for at least one airline that is doing something a little bit new that a lot of people are not liking. But first, let's talk about some good news. And this is the Find My Item app. This has to do with AirTag, where several airlines are partnering with Apple to be able to collaborate so that the passenger can actually share the location of their item with the airline. So if you are using an AirTag in your luggage, in your bag, and it is lost and you are able to see your location, what you can do now is share that location with the airline. In the past, you weren't really able to do that. Sometimes you could show them, look where it is, but they didn't really have a way that they could actually take that information and be able to act on it quickly. So now they are going to be able to do that. And this is all coming into effect in 2025. Now, I know people always ask, is it only AirTag or is it also maybe another type of Bluetooth tracker? So right now, this is only with AirTag, but there is a lot of speculation that once this rolls through with AirTag and several different airlines, that this will hopefully roll out to Tile and other Bluetooth trackers. Now, by the way, if you do not have an AirTag already, I use an AirTag in every single one of the bags that I have, even including my handbag or my purse. I just think it's absolutely genius, and it's great for when you're cruising as well. I am going to leave a link to AirTags. If you are interested, I'll leave that link down below as well. The new carry-on rules. Now, this is not going to affect every airline, so this honestly might not affect you. But I know it does affect many people who view this channel. And this is the fact that Air Canada, if you have an economy ticket, so basically a basic flight and an economy seat, you no longer get carry-on luggage as part of your fare. And instead, you either need to upgrade to a higher level, for instance, like comfort, or instead you do need to pay for that carry-on bag as if it's checked luggage. Now, the cost is going to be $35 for the first bag and an additional $50 for the second bag. And if you don't check it and it is gate checked instead, it will be $65 instead. Now, Air Canada does say that this is in range with what other airlines do. Now, I realize this is true for certain low-cost carriers and budget airlines. So for instance, Ryanair or Spirit or Frontier, but the other airlines that we would have normally considered more similar to Air Canada, like American Airlines or Delta, don't have a cost for carry-on luggage. In any case, this is something that is coming into effect for Air Canada in early January, so it is something to be aware of. However, if you have purchased your flights before January 3rd, then this does not apply to you. Now, please do let me know your thoughts, whether or not this affects you. I do think that when an airline does this, this always leaves a little bit more room for other airlines to follow suit. And let's face it, when something costs more for some customers, it always does leave a little bit more leeway for the cost to go up for all of us. Now, getting back to passports, I know a lot of people do wonder, do I need a passport to go on a cruise? And yes, and no, for many itineraries, yes, you are going to need a passport. However, if you are going on what's called a closed loop cruise, so this is a cruise that is leaving from a US port and is coming back to usually the same US port, oftentimes you do not need to have a passport. But what you do need is an original or certified copy of your birth certificate and a state-issued government ID. Now, unfortunately, sometimes what happens is people don't realize that there are exceptions to this rule because certain countries or destinations, sometimes they are a little bit more strict. And even though the itinerary is closed loop, for those itineraries, people might need a passport. So you really do want to verify these specific countries that your cruise is traveling to or the specific islands to see if that rule is in effect. And you can ask the cruise line as well. However, beyond that, there is something to think about, and that is the fact that there could be an emergency that happens during your cruise. Nobody thinks that it will happen, but it has happened to some people where they have needed to get off in a certain port. Maybe they just needed to go to the hospital, they had an accident or something like that, and they did need to get off the ship in a port of call, and then later on they would need to fly home back to the United States. If an emergency situation like that happens, then it does become difficult to get the proper ID to be able to fly home. So that could require getting in touch with a consulate or an ambassador and procuring that emergency passport information so you can fly home. So if at all possible, it's always recommended to travel, including on a cruise, with a passport. Now, it's still early on when it comes to the ETIAS, so when we get any additional information, I'll be sure to share it here on the channel, but it is something to plan for, knowing that there's a good likelihood that this is going to be in effect if you are going on a Mediterranean or European cruise this summer. Now, I hope that this video was helpful. Please let me know any questions that you might have down in the comments below, and let me know as well, when is your next cruise? I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give it a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye for now, and happy cruising.